March 9, 1997, Los Angeles, 12:45 a.m. A black GMC Suburban pulls away from a party at the Peterson Automotive Museum. Inside, Christopher Wallace, 24 years old, the biggest name in East Coast hip-hop. 4 bullets. Less than 15 seconds, the Notorious B.I.G. was dead. But his story didn't end that night. From a kid selling drugs on Brooklyn corners to the man who resurrected East Coast rap, this is the story of how Christopher Wallace became immortal. Big. The Boy from Bed-Stuy. May 21, 1972. Brooklyn, New York, Bedford-Stuyvesant. Christopher George Latour. Wallace is born to Jamaican immigrants, Valletta Wallace, a preschool teacher, and Selwyn George Latour, a welder and small-time politician. When Christopher was just 2 years old, his father walked out. Never came back. Valletta raised her son alone, working 2 jobs to keep food on the table, and Christopher in private Catholic school, Queen of All Saints Middle School, then Bishop Laughlin Memorial High School. Young Christopher excelled in English. He loved words, loved poetry, won awards for his writing. His teachers saw potential. His mother saw a future lawyer, maybe a doctor. But Christopher saw something else. By age 12, Christopher Wallace was selling crack cocaine on the streets of Bed-Stuy. It was survival, he would later explain. It wasn't about getting rich, it was about eating. At 15, he convinced his mother to let him transfer to George Westinghouse Career and Technical Education High School, a public school where future rap legends Jay-Z, DMX, and Busta Rhymes also walked the halls. By 13, he was nearly 6 feet tall and heavy-set. Kids called him Big. He owned it. But Christopher had another life, one his mother didn't know about. In basements, on street corners, at house parties. He was rapping, freestyling, becoming MCC West. His friends recorded him on a 4-track tape recorder. The demos circulated. Word spread. There's this kid from Bed-Stuy. Sounds different. Flows effortless. Voice like thunder. 1992. One of his demos landed in the hands of Mr. C, a well-known DJ who passed it to The Source magazine. They featured him in their unsigned hype column. And that's when everything changed. The making of Biggie Smalls. Sean Puffy Combs was a young, hungry producer at Uptown Records when he heard Christopher Wallace's demo. He knew immediately this was the voice hip-hop had been waiting for. Puffy signed him. But when Puffy was fired from Uptown in 1993, he started his own label, Bad Boy Records. And Christopher Wallace came with him. Christopher adopted the stage name Biggie Smalls, after a character from the 1975 film Let's Do It Again. But when legal issues forced him to change it, he became the Notorious B.I.G. Business instead of game, he explained. That's what B.I.G. stood for. He was done with the streets. Music was his future now. August 1992. Biggie's first national exposure came on the remix of Mary J. Blige's track, Real Love. His verse was smooth, confident, magnetic. Radio stations played it non-stop. People wanted to know, who is this guy? June 1993. His first solo single dropped on the soundtrack to the film Who's the Man? The track was raw, gritty, unapologetic. Biggie wasn't pretending to be something he wasn't. He was a storyteller, painting vivid pictures of street life, ambition, and survival. For the next year, Biggie worked on his debut album. Puffy pushed him, perfected every beat, every bar, every breath. They called it Ready to Die. September 13th, 1994. Ready to Die hit the streets. It wasn't just an album. It was a confession, an autobiography, a masterpiece. The album's breakout track told Biggie's rags-to-riches story, from roaches and government cheese to champagne and limousines. Critics called it brilliant. Fans called it real. The album went platinum in months, then double platinum. At the 1995 Billboard Music Awards, the Notorious B.I.G. was named MC of the Year. At just 22 years old, Christopher Wallace had become rap royalty. East Coast hip-hop, which had been overshadowed by the West Coast sound of Dr. Dre and Death Row Records, was back on top. And Biggie was leading the charge. Fame, fortune, and fractures. Success came fast. Too fast. August 4th, 1994. Just days after meeting R&B singer Faith Evans at a Bad Boy photo shoot, Biggie married her. She appeared on his track One More Chance, which reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and went platinum. Biggie had 2 children, Tiana Dream Wallace, born in 1993 to his high school girlfriend Jan, and Christopher C.J. Wallace Jr., born in October 1996 to Faith Evans. He promised them everything, vowed to give them the childhood he never had. But fame was pulling him in too many directions. November 30th, 1994. Tupac Shakur, Biggie's friend and mentor, was shot 5 times during a robbery at a New York recording studio. The two had been close. Tupac had mentored Biggie when he was still unknown. They'd partied together, shared dreams. But after the shooting, Tupac believed Biggie and Puffy had orchestrated the attack. Biggie and Puffy denied it, repeatedly, but the damage was done. What started as a personal dispute spiraled into something bigger. East Coast versus West Coast. Bad Boy Records versus Death Row Records. Biggie versus Tupac. Tupac released aggressive diss tracks, claiming he'd slept with Faith Evans and threatening violence. Biggie tried to stay above it. "I'm about my music," he said. "I'm not trying to die over this." But privately, he was scared. He started traveling with security, avoided certain cities, slept with one eye open. The feud that was supposed to be marketing had become deadly real. Life After Death. The album nobody wanted. 1996. While the world watched the East Coast-West Coast war unfold, Biggie was in the studio working on his second album. He called it Life After Death. A double album, 24 tracks, over 2 hours of music. Puffy thought it was too much. "Nobody's gonna sit through a double album," he said. But Biggie insisted. "I got things to say." September 7th, Tupac Shakur was shot 4 times in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas after leaving a Mike Tyson fight. 6 days later, September 13th, 1996, he died. Biggie was devastated. Publicly, he denied any involvement. Privately, he grieved a friendship that had turned to hatred. "I didn't want this," he told friends. None of this was supposed to happen. March 1997. Despite warnings from friends and family, Biggie traveled to Los Angeles to promote Life After Death. He attended the Soul Train Music Awards on March 7th, hosted a party on March 8th. "I'm here to end this," he told Puffy. "I'm here to make peace." March 8th into the early morning of March 9th. The party at the Peterson Automotive Museum was packed. Biggie was in good spirits, laughing, taking photos. Just after midnight, he decided to leave. He climbed into the passenger seat of a GMC Suburban. His entourage followed in other cars. At a red light on Wilshire Boulevard, a dark Chevrolet Impala pulled up alongside them. 4 bullets struck Christopher Wallace. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. At 1:15 a.m., doctors pronounced him dead. The Notorious B.I.G. was 24 years old. The murder remains unsolved to this day. The immortal legacy. March 18, 1997. Over 350 people attended Biggie's funeral in Brooklyn. Thousands more lined the streets as his funeral procession passed through Bed-Stuy. His mother, Valletta, was stoic. His wife, Faith, was inconsolable. His children, too young to understand, would grow up without their father. 16 days after his death, Life After Death was released. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. Critics called it a triumph. Fans called it prophetic. In 2000, the album was certified diamond, meaning it sold over 10 million copies. One of the highest-selling hip-hop albums of all time. Puffy, now Puff Daddy, released a tribute track that became one of the biggest songs of 1997, topping charts worldwide. Lil' Kim, whose career Biggie had launched, achieved platinum status and dedicated her performances to his memory. Though she later revealed their relationship had been volatile and at times violent, she credited him with changing her life. The artists Biggie mentored continued his legacy. Junior Mafia carried the bad boy torch. In 2020, the Notorious B.I.G. was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 2019, the corner of Fulton Street and St. James Place in Brooklyn, where Biggie grew up, was renamed Christopher Wallace Way. Murals of his face adorn buildings across Brooklyn and around the world. Jay-Z, Nas, Kendrick Lamar, Drake, J. Cole. Every major rapper since 1997 cites Biggie as an influence. His storytelling, his flow, his honesty, his command of language. Biggie's mother, Valletta, founded the Christopher Wallace Memorial Foundation, which hosts an annual charity event called B.I.G. Night Out. The acronym was repurposed: Books Instead of Guns. The foundation provides school supplies and resources to underprivileged children, ensuring Biggie's legacy helps the next generation escape the streets. Christopher C.J. Wallace Jr., Biggie's son with Faith Evans, has continued his father's creative legacy, working as an actor and entrepreneur. In 2020, he released a house remix of one of his father's biggest hits, introducing Biggie's music to a new generation. In 2009, the biopic Notorious told Biggie's story on the big screen. In 2021, Netflix released a documentary exploring his life before fame, with unprecedented access granted by the Wallace family. Today, Biggie's music streams billions of times annually. His influence is felt in fashion, language, and culture worldwide. He only released one album while alive, yet he's considered one of the greatest rappers of all time. From a kid selling drugs to survive, to the king who saved East Coast hip-hop, Christopher Wallace's journey was short, brutal, and beautiful. He was flawed. He made mistakes. He lived in a world where violence was the language and survival was the only goal. But through music, he transcended all of it. Ready to die, born to live forever. The Notorious B.I.G. lived only 24 years. But in that time, he changed music forever. He showed kids from the projects that their stories mattered, that their voices could move the world. He proved that honesty, raw, unfiltered truth, was more powerful than any facade. He left behind 2 children who carry his name with pride. He left behind a mother who turned her grief into hope for others. He left behind a culture that will never forget him. Christopher Wallace was ready to die. But the Notorious B.I.G., he was born to live forever. Share your favorite Biggie memory in the comments. Subscribe for more legendary stories from hip-hop history.